What happens when one of Hollywood's most recognizable action stars sits down on a daytime talk show known for sharp political takes and unfiltered opinions, and the conversation turns unexpectedly personal? Make sure to subscribe to Talk Show Fallout and like and comment for more talk show coverage. The cameras are already rolling. The audience is clapping as Chris Hemsworth walks out, smiling, relaxed, giving a quick wave before taking his seat at the table. Across from him, the panel of hosts from The View are mid-applause. At the center of the table, Joy Behar leans forward with that familiar half-smile that usually means she's about to say something bold. Joy starts light. "So, Chris, first of all, welcome. You look annoyingly perfect this morning." The audience laughs. Chris chuckles, nodding. "I'll take that. Thank you. I worked very hard on being annoyingly perfect." More laughter. The energy is easy at first. Another host jumps in, asking about his new film project. Chris speaks casually, grounded, talking about filming overseas, balancing work with family life. He mentions his kids briefly, how he tries to keep things normal despite the spotlight. Joy tilts her head. "Normal? You live in Australia half the time, you're Thor the other half, and you're married to a literal Spanish goddess. I don't know how normal that is." The crowd reacts with a mix of laughter and cheers. Chris smiles politely. "Normal for us. School runs, making breakfast, stepping on Legos. That part's universal." Joy nods, but then the tone subtly shifts. "But you've said in interviews you've been stepping back from acting a bit, right? Slowing down." "Yeah," Chris says calmly. "I've been more selective. Spending more time at home. That kind of thing." Joy raises her eyebrows. "Selective or worried?" There's a slight murmur in the audience. Chris keeps smiling, but his posture straightens just a little. "Worried about what?" "Well," Joy continues, gesturing vaguely, "there's been a lot of talk about superhero fatigue. Big action franchises not doing what they used to. I mean, are you jumping off the ship before it sinks?" A few gasps. A couple of claps. It's that live TV tension, not explosive but noticeable. Chris lets out a soft breath through his nose. "I don't feel like I'm on a sinking ship." Joy interrupts quickly. "Oh, come on. You've been swinging that hammer for over a decade." The audience laughs again, but there's an edge to it. Chris nods. "And I'm grateful for it. Those films changed my life. But my decisions right now are about my family and my health. Not fear." Joy leans back. "Health." He pauses for half a second. "Yeah. I found out I have a genetic predisposition for certain neurological issues. It made me rethink how I spend my time." The audience quiets. It's a shift, more serious now. One of the other hosts jumps in gently. "That was very brave of you to share publicly." Chris nods. "I just wanted people to think about preventative care. That's all." Joy crosses her arms lightly. "But don't you think sometimes celebrities share medical stuff to, I don't know, soften their image? Make themselves more relatable?" The room goes still. It's not a full freeze, but close. Chris doesn't smile this time. "I didn't share it to soften anything. I shared it because I went through something that made me pause." That's human. A small wave of applause rolls through the audience. Joy shrugs. "I'm just saying, in this town, nothing is accidental." Chris tilts his head. "You think I planned a genetic test result?" The crowd reacts, some laughter, some oohs. Joy smirks slightly. "You know what I mean?" "No, I don't," Chris says, still calm but firmer now. "Because when you say things like that, it implies that vulnerability is a PR strategy. And for me, it wasn't." The other hosts exchange quick glances. Joy leans forward again. "I'm not attacking you. I'm asking a question. That's what we do here. And I'm answering it," Chris replies evenly. The tension is real now. Not shouting. Not chaos. But sharp. Another host tries to lighten it. Okay, let's not scare him off. We still want him to come back." The audience laughs nervously. Chris smiles briefly at that, but his eyes stay focused on Joy. "Look, I get it. You guys are here to push. I respect that. But I also think there's a line between challenging someone and suggesting their personal health decisions are calculated." Joy raises her hands slightly. "I didn't say calculated. You implied it." The crowd reacts again, louder this time. Joy laughs, but it's tighter now. "Oh, so now we're dissecting my tone?" Chris responds quickly. "You dissected my motives." A bigger reaction from the audience, applause mixed with a few surprised shouts. There's a beat of silence. Joy glances toward the audience, then back at him. "You're very good at this." "I've done press for 15 years, Chris says. "You learn to listen carefully." One of the co-hosts jumps in. sensing the escalation. Let's pivot for a second. Chris, you've also talked about redefining masculinity in Hollywood. That's been a big topic. Chris nods, grateful for the shift but still composed. Yeah, I think strength isn't just physical. It's being open, being accountable. Joy cuts in again. But you still play the big, muscled hero. Isn't that reinforcing the same stereotype? A few cheers from the crowd. Chris doesn't hesitate. I play a character. Off screen, I try to be present, emotionally available. Those aren't opposites. Joy presses. But do you see why some people think Hollywood sells one thing and pretends to be progressive in interviews? Chris leans back slightly, finally letting a bit of frustration show. I can't control what Hollywood sells. I can control how I show up. The audience claps. Joy nods slowly. Fair. But her expression says she's not done. Chris looks around the table. Look, I don't mind tough questions. I really don't. But there's a difference between asking about my career choices and questioning whether I'm being honest about my health. The room stays quiet for a moment. Joy responds, her tone cooler now. And there's a difference between being questioned and being attacked. Chris gives a small nod. Agreed. The tension doesn't disappear. It just settles into something heavier. The camera pans slightly to capture the whole table. The audience is alert now, fully invested. What started as a promotional interview has clearly shifted into something more pointed. Joy adjusts her notes. All right, let's keep going. And you can feel it. This conversation isn't cooling down. It's just getting started. Joy taps her pen lightly against the table, glancing down at her notes, and then back at Chris. The smile is still there, but it's thinner now. The audience can feel that shift. That moment when a daytime conversation stops being promotional and starts being personal. So, Joy says, crossing one leg over the other, since we're talking about authenticity, let's talk about Hollywood authenticity. A few audience members murmur. Chris folds his hands loosely in front of him. Okay, you've built a career playing this larger-than-life hero, Joy continues. And off-screen you talk about vulnerability, mental health, stepping back for family. Some people would say that's a very convenient evolution. When the box office shifts, suddenly it's about inner peace. There's an audible, "oh," from somewhere in the crowd. Chris doesn't immediately answer. He takes a breath, not exaggerated, just measured. You really think that's what's happening? I'm asking, Joy replies quickly, because the audience wonders. We hear these narratives a lot. One of the co-hosts jumps in gently. Joy, to be fair, he's been open about this for a while. Joy shrugs. I'm not denying that. I'm just saying timing matters. Chris leans forward slightly now. Not aggressive. Engaged. Timing matters when you're selling a product. My health isn't a product. A wave of applause rolls through the studio. Joy nods but presses again. But you are here selling a movie. That's true, Chris says calmly. And I'm happy to talk about the movie. Ask me about the stunt work. Ask me about the cast. I'll go all day. A ripple of laughter breaks some tension. But when we shift into implying that my personal life decisions are calculated branding moves, I'm going to respond. The audience claps again, louder this time. Joy leans back, lips pursed. You're very defensive. Chris tilts his head. Or maybe I'm just clear. The crowd reacts immediately, applause mixed with a few gasps. One co-host raises her eyebrows, clearly feeling the temperature rising. Okay, let's not turn this into a boxing match. Joy laughs lightly. Oh please, he could take me. Chris smiles for the first time in a few minutes. Not happening. My mom would never forgive me. Big laugh from the audience. For a second, it feels lighter. But Joy isn't finished. You mentioned redefining masculinity earlier. Let's dig into that. Because you've also joked in interviews about being the dumb muscle guy. Doesn't that undermine the message? Chris nods slowly. Self-deprecating humor doesn't cancel out growth. Joy interrupts. But do young boys watching you see growth? Or do they just see the hammer? There's a pause. Chris answers carefully. They probably see both. And I hope they see that you can be strong and still talk about fear. You can be successful and still step back. Joy counters quickly. But do you think Hollywood really allows that? Or is this just a safe narrative because audiences are demanding it? The audience reacts again. It's divided now. Some clapping, some murmurs. Chris shifts in his seat. You keep framing this like I'm responding to market research. Joy shrugs. You're part of a billion-dollar franchise. Market research is your world. Chris nods once. It's part of the business. But it's not my marriage. It's not my kids. It's not the moment I got a phone call about my health. The room goes quiet again. One co-host gently says, I think what he's saying is that not everything is strategy. Joy looks at her colleague, then back at Chris. Fine. Let's talk about something else that isn't strategy. She flips a page dramatically. Critics have said the last few superhero films lacked depth, that they rely on spectacle over substance. Do you agree? The audience perks up again. Chris smiles slightly. Some films are pure escapism. That's okay. Joy presses. Is that a yes? It's a yes to the idea that not every film needs to solve the world's problems, Chris replies. Joy leans forward. But shouldn't they try? With the influence you have. Now there's a stronger reaction from the audience. A few cheers. Chris looks directly at her. Influence doesn't mean obligation to preach. Joy raises her eyebrows. So entertainers shouldn't use their platform? I didn't say that, Chris responds quickly. I said not every project has to be political to have value. Applause breaks out again. Joy shakes her head slightly. That's easy to say when you're not on the receiving end of policy decisions. The air changes. That's the first time the conversation edges clearly into politics. Chris keeps his voice even. And I respect that perspective. But I'm an actor. I'm not a legislator. Joy cuts in. But you're a public figure. Silence can be loud. The audience reacts, louder this time. Chris pauses before answering. I speak on issues I understand. I don't pretend expertise where I don't have it. Joy fires back, convenient. There it is again, that wordless escalation. Chris's jaw tightens just slightly. It's not convenient. It's responsible. The audience claps, more forcefully now. One co-host tries again to mediate. I think what Joy's getting at is whether celebrities have a duty beyond entertainment. And I think what I'm saying, Chris replies, glancing briefly at her before looking back at Joy, is that duty looks different for different people. Joy folds her hands. So your duty is? My duty is to my family first, he says without hesitation. And to the work I choose to do. Beyond that, I support causes privately, publicly when it makes sense, and I try not to turn every conversation into a headline. The audience applauds that line. Joy smiles tightly. Well, headlines are kind of unavoidable when you're you. Chris shrugs. That doesn't mean I chase them. A beat passes. Joy studies him. You're very composed. Chris chuckles softly. You'd be surprised. The crowd laughs. Joy tilts her head. No, I wouldn't. You're media trained. Chris nods. Of course I am. That doesn't make what I'm saying less real. There's a noticeable shift in audience reaction. More supportive murmurs now. Joy glances toward the camera briefly, then back to him. I just think sometimes Hollywood wants credit for growth while still cashing in on the same old formulas. Chris doesn't hesitate this time. And sometimes talk shows want controversy while saying they're just asking questions. The studio erupts, loud applause, scattered gasps, even a few people standing. Halfway up before sitting back down. Joy's eyes widen slightly. Are you accusing us of that? Chris keeps his tone steady. I'm saying tension boosts ratings. We both know that. Another wave of audience noise. One of the co-hosts quickly says, Okay, that's fair, but this is live television. Chris nods. Exactly. Joy lets out a short laugh. So now you're producing the show too? I'm participating in it, Chris replies. The tension is undeniable now. It's not playful. It's sharp, layered, and very real. Joy adjusts in her chair. Well, participation means you don't always control the narrative. Chris gives a small, controlled smile. I'm not trying to control it. I'm just not letting it control me. The audience applauds again, louder than before. For a moment, no one speaks. The silence hangs there, thick but electric. Then Joy looks straight at him and says, All right, let's see how far that composure really goes. And you can feel it. This exchange is nowhere near over. There's a ripple through the audience after Joy's last line. Some people laugh nervously. Others lean forward in their seats. The co-hosts glance at each other, unsure whether to rein it in or let it play out. Chris doesn't flinch. He gives a small nod. I'm right here. Joy studies him for a moment. All right, let's talk about privilege. The word lands heavy. You're a white, wealthy, globally famous man, Joy continues. When you say you don't want to get political, some people hear that as a luxury. A few members of the audience clap immediately. Others stay quiet. Chris takes a breath. I'm aware of the position I'm in. Joy jumps in. But are you using it fully? He keeps his tone steady. Define fully. Joy gestures toward him. You have millions of followers. When there are issues affecting women, minorities, working families, do you think saying I'm just an actor is enough? There's a mix of applause and murmurs. Chris leans back slightly, thinking. I don't think reducing it to just an actor is what I said. Joy presses. It's what it sounds like. He nods once. Then let me clarify. I don't believe shouting about every issue publicly makes someone more moral than someone who works quietly behind the scenes. The audience reacts, some applause, some skeptical murmurs. Joy tilts her head. That's a convenient way to avoid specifics. Chris's jaw tightens slightly again. It's not avoidance. It's choosing when I can actually contribute something meaningful. Joy interrupts. But meaningful to who? To you. Or to the people affected. A co-host interjects softly. Joy. No, let him answer. Joy says without looking away from Chris. He doesn't raise his voice. Meaningful impact isn't measured by how many times your name trends on social media. That line gets a strong applause break. Joy smiles thinly. Ah, social media. You brought it up. Chris nods. Because that's where a lot of this pressure comes from. Joy leans forward. Pressure is what regular people live with every day. And I don't pretend otherwise, Chris replies quickly. But there's a difference between acknowledging privilege and accepting the idea that if you're not constantly broadcasting your politics, you're failing. A louder wave of applause rolls in. Joy shakes her head slightly. You see, this is where it gets tricky. Because audiences are tired of celebrities who want admiration but not accountability. Chris answers calmly. Accountability for what? For the culture you help shape. The audience reacts again, louder this time. Chris leans in now, matching her posture. Culture isn't shaped by one actor in a cape. Joy fires back. No, but it's shaped by patterns. By repetition. By who gets cast. By who gets paid. He nods slowly. And that's a valid conversation. But that's a systemic issue. It's not solved by me making a speech on Instagram. Joy interrupts sharply. So you're powerless? No, Chris says firmly. I'm realistic. That firmness catches attention. A few people clap immediately. Joy pauses, then says, realistic can sometimes mean comfortable. The audience lets out a collective, oh. Chris doesn't smile this time. Comfortable would have been sitting here and nodding to everything you're implying. A strong applause break hits the room. One co-host tries to lighten the tone. Okay, I think we're in debate club now. Joy laughs briefly, but her eyes stay locked on Chris. I respect that you're pushing back. I do. But don't you think fans expect more than charm and humility? Chris nods. Fans expect honesty. And I'm being honest. Joy counters, or careful. He exhales slowly. You keep framing my answers like they're crafted by a PR team. Joy shrugs. Are they not? Chris looks directly at her. No, the audience reacts immediately. Louder applause than before. He continues. If I was following a script, I'd be talking about the film nonstop. I wouldn't be sitting here debating morality with you. That draws laughter and clapping. Joy smiles despite herself. Fair point. There's a slight easing of tension, just enough to breathe. But Joy pivots again. Let me ask you this. If your daughter came to you and said, Dad, why don't you speak up more about issues that affect me? What would you say? The question lands differently. It's personal. Chris's expression softens. I'd ask her what she wants me to understand. Joy leans in. And if she said she feels unsafe in a world where powerful men stay quiet? A hush falls over the audience. Chris doesn't rush this answer. Then I'd listen. And I'd act in a way that actually helps her, not in a way that looks good for cameras. A wave of applause follows, steady and sustained. Joy nods slowly. So you don't believe visibility itself has value? I believe visibility without substance is noise, Chris replies. That line draws one of the biggest reactions so far. Joy laughs softly. You're very good at turning a phrase. Chris shrugs. I've had practice. The co-host to Joy's left finally jumps in more firmly. I think what's happening here is two different philosophies about influence. Joy nods. Exactly. Chris agrees. Yes. The co-host continues. Joy believes public pressure forces change. Chris believes quieter action can be just as effective. Joy adds quickly. But quiet action doesn't inspire. Chris responds. Sometimes it protects. There's another ripple of reaction. Joy tilts her head again. Protects who? My family, he says immediately. My peace. And sometimes the actual cause, if it's not turned into a spectacle. Joy pauses at that. The audience feels the shift. It's less combative now, more layered. Joy sighs lightly. Part of my job is to challenge power. Chris nods. And part of mine is to decide how I use mine. That gets applause again. Joy glances at the crowd, then back at him. You're not rattled at all, are you? Chris finally smiles fully. Oh, I'm rattled. I just don't show it well. The audience laughs loudly. Joy laughs too, the tension easing for a moment. See? That's what people like about you. Chris replies, I'd rather they like that I'm thoughtful. Joy raises an eyebrow. And you think you've proven that today? Chris answers evenly. I think I've proven I won't just nod along to avoid discomfort. That line draws another strong applause break. The energy in the studio is different now. It's no longer one-sided questioning. It feels like a real debate, balanced, charged, but controlled. Joy sits back finally, crossing her arms again. All right, I'll give you this, you didn't dodge. Chris nods once. I didn't come here to. The audience applauds again, sustained this time. But you can tell from Joy's expression, there's still one more layer she wants to peel back. And the final stretch of this conversation is going to determine how this moment lives beyond the studio. There's a noticeable shift in the room now. The tension hasn't disappeared, but it's evolved. It feels less like a standoff and more like two people who refuse to back down. And the audience knows they've just watched something that will be replayed. Joy glances toward the camera, then back at Chris. All right, final question. A few audience members clap lightly, sensing the wrap-up tone. You've talked about responsibility. You've talked about privacy. You've talked about impact. If you could say one thing to the people who think you're playing it safe, what would it be? There's no sarcasm in her voice now. It's direct. Chris doesn't rush this one. He folds his hands again, looking out toward the audience briefly before answering. I'd say, he begins evenly, playing it safe would have been smiling through questions I disagreed with. The audience reacts immediately, applause building. He continues, I respect this platform. I respect debate. But I don't believe in performative outrage. I don't believe in saying things just so they circulate online. Joy watches him carefully. I believe in showing up for my family. I believe in doing work I'm proud of. And I believe that people can disagree without turning each other into villains. The applause grows louder, sustained this time. Joy nods slowly. Nobody called you a villain. Chris smiles lightly. Not today. The crowd laughs. One of the co-hosts jumps in with a grin. Well, we still have 5 minutes. More laughter breaks the intensity. Joy lets out a short laugh too. Okay, fair. No villains. She leans forward slightly. But you have to admit, this is why people tune in. Chris nods. I know. Joy gestures around the table. We're not here to just hand out compliments. We push. And I push back, Chris replies calmly. A wave of applause rolls through again. Joy gives him a measured look. And you did. There's a brief silence. Not awkward, reflective. Then another host shifts the tone gently. Let's talk about what happens after this. Because you know this clip is going online. The audience reacts with knowing laughter. Chris chuckles. Oh, I'm aware. Joy adds, there will be headlines. Chris shrugs. There always are. And social media will decide who won, the co-host says with air quotes. Chris smiles. That's the game, right? Joy nods slowly. Do you care who they say won? Chris pauses. No. I care whether what I said was clear. The audience applauds again, strong and steady. Joy sits back fully now, uncrossing her arms. I disagree with parts of what you said. I figured, Chris responds lightly. But, she continues, I respect that you didn't fold. There's an audible murmur of approval from the crowd. Chris nods. And I respect that you didn't soften the questions. That line shifts the energy completely. The tension that felt sharp earlier now feels resolved, not erased, but acknowledged. The audience breaks into applause again. One co-host smiles widely. See, civil disagreement on live TV. It's possible. Joy laughs. Don't make this a public service announcement. Chris adds, too late. The audience laughs loudly. As the segment wraps, the director's voice can faintly be heard counting down in the studio. The hosts begin their closing rhythm. Joy looks directly at Chris one last time. You're welcome back anytime. Just know what you're walking into. Chris stands as the audience starts clapping again. I wouldn't expect anything less. They shake hands. It's firm. Not overly warm, but respectful. The cameras pull wide as the applause continues. A few audience members stand. Some cheer. Others are still talking among themselves, clearly processing what they just saw. And that's where it could have ended. But it didn't. Within minutes of the broadcast ending, clips begin circulating online. Short segments of the exchange, especially the lines about tension boosts ratings and visibility without substance is noise, start trending. Some viewers praise Chris Hemsworth for staying composed and pushing back. Others defend Joy Behar, saying she asked the questions many people were thinking. Hashtags split in two directions. Debate threads explode. Commentators dissect body language. Media blogs run headlines framing it as a heated clash on The View. Some call it refreshing. Others call it uncomfortable. A few call it overdue. Behind the scenes, according to staff chatter later reported online, the post-show atmosphere wasn't explosive. There was no shouting backstage. No dramatic exit. Chris reportedly thanked the crew. Joy walked off discussing the next segment like any other day. But the audience? They didn't move on that quickly. Clips rack up millions of views overnight. Reaction videos appear analyzing every pause, every interruption. Fans argue in comment sections about celebrity responsibility, about media culture, about whether actors should be activists. The debate extends far beyond the table. And that's the real aftermath. Not a fight, not a scandal, but a conversation that spilled out into public space. The next morning, morning shows recap it. Entertainment sites run polls asking viewers whose perspective resonated more. Some praise the segment as one of the most authentic exchanges the show has had in months. And interestingly, neither Chris nor Joy immediately posts about it. No subtweets. No clarifications. Just silence, which ironically fuels even more discussion. By the end of the week, it's clear. This wasn't a meltdown. It wasn't a viral embarrassment. It was a real-time clash of philosophies, played out in front of a live audience. And that's why it hit. Because it felt unscripted. Unpolished. Human. Two strong personalities refusing to reduce complex issues to quick applause lines. As the clip replays one more time in the final edit for viewers at home, you can still hear the layered audience reaction. The applause, the gasps, the laughter. It wasn't one-sided. It wasn't clean. It was live television. And that's exactly what people are still talking about. Now we want to hear from you. Was Chris right to push back? Was Joy right to press harder? Did the conversation feel honest or strategically tense? Share your opinion in the comments and subscribe to Talk Show Fallout for more real talk show stories.